Hey YouTube, I just want to showcase you guys my rage stacking Wyvern build. And what you can see here is an Arbiter of Ash in a 6-man group. I wanted to test out my DPS and it went fairly smooth. I was able to take him down without any problems, doing like 3 to 8 million damage per hit. I'll go over the mechanics of the build. It has quite a lot of interactions I want to go through, so stay tuned for that. And I'll be quickly showcasing a tier 16 200% daily map during that. I've been leveling this character from level 1 and I'm sitting at 94 at the moment. It was incredibly fun to level this character, super smooth, especially if you have leveling gear. And the build revolves around rage stacking and about the new lineage gem Medveds Felling. So what this gem does is you get 1% attack speed per rage. So I'm sitting at 91 rage, which gives me 90% increased attack speed. So to showcase how broken this support gem is, you can see my tooltip is currently sitting at 2.9 million. And if I take out Medveds Felling, you can see I'm doing 1.7 million. So I put it back on, it gives me 1.2 million DPS. So that is just insane damage. Comparable, if I take out Elemental Armament, I would lose 2.5 to 2.9, and this would give me literally 1.2 million, almost doubling my DPS. That's how broken this Medveds Felling support gem is. The downside of it is you lose 1% of your max life per 5 rage. If I have 90 rage, I would lose 18% of my max life per second while using the skill. To counter this, I'm using Chaos Inoculation, which sets my total life to 1. Because my life is 1 and I lose 18% of my max life, I only need one source of life regen to counter this downside. Additionally, I'm also running Berserk, which increases my rage effect by 30%. And it also has the same downside of losing percent max life and also can be countered with just one life regen modifier. Yeah, so overall, that's basically how the mapping looks like in a 200% delirious map against Breach. And you also have quite a lot of armor. But I think here I showcase quickly the life regen. So you only need like one life regen per second to counter all the downsides of Berserk and Medveds Felling, since your max life is 1. Medveds and Berserk have percentage life regeneration decrease, and this is flat amount, so it counters everything with just one modifier. Pretty cool mechanic. Yeah, so this is me sitting at 10,000 armor, or around 74% fizz reduction, and also some armor against elemental damage. So fairly tanky build too. And I guess I'm also going to be talking about like some crafting, how to craft the weapon, how to craft the amulet. And I have a written guide in the mobilitics, also with leveling. You can play this build basically on any budget. You can also league start it. It's really a build that scales super well with currency, so the more you invest into it, the exponentially better it's gonna feel. Yeah, so I guess I'm going over the mechanics right now about all the skill gems. Okay, so the build revolves around the Rend, which is the basic attack from the Wyvern, and it has a bunch of advantages. First of all, if you consume a power charge, you get damage is extra lightning for the next 10 seconds, and your damage becomes lightning charge, which gives you 150% more area of effect. This alone will make your Rend incredibly large in area. You increase it with magnified area, and I have linked Medveds Felling, as I said before, Garokans, Rakiata, and Elemental Armament. This is just pure damage setup. I use it both for single target and AoE. Now the new Absent Amulet lets you reserve Eternal Rage for free. So you get 100 Spirit on this amulet for free, which is incredibly strong because this means you have constantly max rage. The maximum rage is useful for a bunch of reasons because it will give you more attack damage. And on top of that, you also get increased spell damage for every rage, which you can then convert with a Crown of Ice because it says increases and reductions to spell damage also apply to attacks. And you get increased physical damage for every rage as well. This will give you or armor for every rage you have. Basically, you're dipping in your attack damage, in your attack speed, in your armor, all at the same time while stacking rage. And I'm running Oracle for a couple of reasons, mainly because of unseen paths, where you can get a bunch of max rage right here. And since Eternal Rage will constantly give you rage per second, the inherent loss of rage, which starts faster with anger management, will be avoided, so to speak. Entwined Realities lets you also allocate some major nodes that like nodes usually would travel to for quite a bit for free. And I'm making use of a Heroic Tragedy to allocate more useful nodes on the tree right here. So for example, these nodes would give me like 40% elemental damage, 40% melee, and 40% melee. Of this, I have like insane amounts of increased damage and insane amounts of increased attack speed because of Medveds Felling. And I have great armor percent. So all I have to do in this build is I'm focusing on area of effect, rage stacking, for example, of Primal Rage, and crit rate. That's all you need to focus on. So you're looking for defenses, area, and crit and rage stacking. That's it. Then I use Lunar Assault with Batir's Vengeance, which will give me 1% of damage as extra cold per 2 rage I have. So if I have 90 rage, I'm gonna get 45% Danish extra. And Lunar Assault, you only have to click once every few seconds. So I will click it once, and then I have Batir's Vengeance for the next 1.5 minutes. Then on top of that, Pounce is linked with Culmination and Alias Chimes. So if I attack like 4 times and I press Pounce once, I will get a power charge for free, which I will then convert into the Lightning Charge Rend. Then I have like Coalescence for Energy Shield recharge. I have Scavenge Platings, Armor Break, so I get like 40% more armor, which is quite good. And I have Herald of Ice, of course, with Armor Break, so they can chain. And this would be like a normal tier 15 map, so it's like super smooth, and you can chain your heralds like this. Incredibly fun to play. And you can see my Herald of Ice, if I freeze something, it does like 400k damage. Then I'm also running a Herald of Ash for more clear, and a Berserk, which gives me 72% increased rage effect. And I've linked it to Uhtred's Exodus. And this also has a big downside of losing max percent life per rage, but I counter this with one mod on my boots, I believe, which gives me life regen per second, and this will counter all these life losses you get from Medveds Felling and from Berserk. Okay, so to show you our cheaper setup, I'm going to drop some of my gear. So usually I have like gloves and something. I would be sitting at 1.6 million tooltip. I think if you can reach half of the tooltip, that is probably pretty realistic. So I'm going to take out Garokan, since I think most of you will not be able to afford it, and I'm going to exchange my rings. And then I'm also going to use a 15 Divines Talisman I bought. So now we're sitting around roughly half of the damage which I was at before. And I think it's pretty reasonable, also no Garokans. And I'm going to showcase you guys a tier 15 and a tier 15 100% Delhi map. So yeah, as you guys can see, no problem at all doing a tier 15 map. Obviously I still have a Mage Blood, I could also take that off. Let's do that. I'll take off the Mage Blood as well. Now my tooltip is like 900k while mapping. Let's do a quick summoning circle. So yeah, that is the Showcase 5 link, no Mage Blood. I'm gonna try a tier 15 map with Delhi. Obviously my resistances are pretty skewed at the moment, and I have to wait a little bit for the rage to kick in, so you have to play a little bit careful at the beginning of the map. I just stay back a little bit until my res are up, and then we can go. This is Batir's Vengeance. And you can see you can clear tier 15 Delhi completely fine, no Mage Blood, no good 15 Divine Talisman, no rings. I can even show my Amethyst ring. Obviously my Amulet is still good, and some of my other gear pieces like Jewels are also still good. But I'm also running a 5 link, so there's like a lot of room for improvement, and even my final endgame version has also room for improvement as well. But this is basically the hardest content in the game, and I'm using maybe a fourth of my power right now, which I think is pretty achievable at this point of the league. And you can play this at any budget, so you can league start this build as well. It's super smooth to play Wyvern, one of the best builds, one of the best archetypes in my opinion. So I'm probably gonna die very soon because I don't have any fire res. But I guess that's good enough for the showcase. Okay, I'll go back. So I guess I'm about to die because no fire res. Yeah, but that's pretty much it for the showcase. Yeah, so for the showcase, these were the rings I was using. No Mage Blood, of course, and this Talisman was what I was using in the showcase as well. Okay, so now that you've guys seen the gameplay and the mechanics of the build, I'm quickly gonna go over my gear. Boots I've bought for 1 divine. You want to make sure you have life region on them. Then gloves, I think there were like 10 divines. 200 ES gloves. Helmet I bought for 50 divines. I bought like an exceptional base and then balled it myself. The rings, I have a guide on how to craft. They are quite costly. They can cost up to 200 or more divines to craft. Check out my other YouTube video to see how you craft breach rings to 60% quality. Chest I bought for 200 divines. And then I have the talisman and most important, the amulet. Okay, let's talk about how to actually craft the amulet. So crafting amulet, you want to buy an absent amulet with eternal rage. Item level 82 preferred, because then you can roll all mods. If you don't care about resistances or all attributes, you need at least 75 to hit the all to skill level. So just enter 82 Eternal Rage and buy one of them. And the next step is you want to annul them to 1 modifier and start spamming Chaos. Now there's a bunch of modifiers you want to look out for. There's melee skills and there's projectile skills. And both of those, if they're +3, you want to fracture. Also, you want to fracture any tier 1 spirit. Make sure to divine it to 50 and then fracture it. And the reason for that is because if you search for any spirit, melee or projectile skills fractured, you can see spirit goes for 100 divines. Let's check for melee skill gems. Melee skill gems goes for 130 divines at the moment. And projectile skills is where you hit the jackpot at 235 divines. So if you roll your own amulet, make sure to also look out for spirit, all projectile skills, and melee skills. Okay, so you start off with an absent amulet and you want to annul until you have at least 3 modifiers. And then you want to chaos spam until you hit your tier 1 to melee skills, your spirit, or tier 1 to projectile skills. So in case you're lucky and you get your plus to melee skills, I'll just add it in this case, you would get something like this. And then you want to make sure you add a desecration on it. And then you want to fracture. Now, if you miss, you have to start over. So it's going to cost you a couple of tries. If you hit, you're very lucky. And now you can annul off until 2 modifiers. And what you want to do now is you want to use an essence of the breach. And then you want to use Reaver Catalyst to get your +4 to skills. Now, here in Craft of Exile, I cannot go over 20%. But in theory, you can go up to 40%. So it looks something like this. If you don't care about a +5 or +6 amulet, you can only catalyst it to 34%. I would just recommend to do it to 40% attack modifiers, so you get the +4. And maybe later on you can add more quality and sanctify it. But okay, so now you're at 40% quality, so don't forget this step, really important. Next up, you want to chaos spam until you hit a spirit, tier 1. I'm just going to add it again. So you hit your tier 1 spirit. And what you want to do now is you want to perfect exalt with an omen of some dextral exaltation to add a suffix. So you got a tier 4 cold rest. Let's say you're not happy with it. So use a perfect essence of enhancement with an omen of dextral crystallization to remove the suffix. And then you're guaranteed going to get global defense. And the last modifier, you can just use an ancient collarbone to desecrate a suffix you like. Boom, that's it. Amulet done. So for the talisman, it's a little bit more complicated, but also you can craft it yourself. You want to buy a lot of white bases of this Magi talisman, because that's what gives you the maximum rage implicit. And I bought a bunch of them and perfect transmuted them. If you perfect transmute, you have a chance of 2.3% to hit the tier 2% is and a 1% to hit a tier 1%. And you can fracture a high fizz or a high hybrid as well. I would suggest to only fracture a high percent fizz and a high flat fizz. Let's say you hit your increased fizz. This would be like the optimal case. Let's say you hit a tier 2, because I also use a tier 2. I think tier 2 is good enough. So it would look something like this, right? You transmute it, you perfect org it, and then you regal it. And then you want to fracture it again. So again, add a desecration modifier, and then you want to hit the fracture 1 in 3. And this can be quite costly. That's like the most expensive part, or one of the most expensive parts. And then you want to annul off 2 modifiers and chaos spam until you hit flat crit. You really want to make sure that you hit a flat crit. I'll just add it. In this case, I think it's quite rare. You have to spend a 1000 chaos orb, so it's gonna be quite costly, this craft. Once you hit the flat crit, you want to perfect exalt with omens of greater exaltation and extra exaltation. Perfect. Now you have your suffixes filled. That is very important that you fill your suffixes. And what you want to do now is you want to desecrate. You can either use a preserved or ancient, and you will have a desecrated prefix, right? And you also need to buy, now you need an Astrid's creativity. This will allow you to have multiple crafted modifiers. I can't do this in Craft of Exile, but in order to demonstrate to you guys, I will quickly go to Redwild's stream because he did it. So you can see it's the same for almost every weapon. He has this percent increased fizz fractured. He rolled for his crit chance and then he exalted twice. And now he desecrated it. And then he will roll for something. You want to roll for tier 1 flat. Tier 1 flat can be quite rare, so you will have to desecrate a lot. But the advantage of this alloy is, you can see the alloy here, can have one additional crafted modifier, is that you don't need to use any Omen of Lights. By using the Omen of Sinister Crystallization, you can remove the prefix here. So you guys can see he uses a perfect essence. See, perfect essence of fire. You can use any, whether you use fire or whether you use cold or lightning, it doesn't matter. He uses a perfect essence of flame to remove the desecrated modifier. And you can see it right here. He removed the desecrated modifier, so it has 3 suffixes and this 1 crafted modifier. And then you can use Essence of the Abyss to remove the crafted modifier and replace it with an Essence of the Abyss modifier, the Mark of the Abyss. And this will allow your next desecration to always hit the prefix because the suffixes are full. So now you have again 3 suffixes, 1 fractured prefix and 1 desecrated prefix, and you can desecrate basically for free because you can cycle this over and over again. So he looks for tier 1 flat, he doesn't find it, he just takes any mod, and now he places again another perfect essence. In this case, perfect essence of flames, but it doesn't really matter as long as it's a prefix essence. And uses the omen to guarantee to remove only a prefix. And then he uses a essence of the abyss again to remove the crafted modifier. And that's why this alloy is so broken, because you don't need to spend any Omen of Lights to hit your tier 1 flat. And then you can desecrate again and repeat the cycle until you hit tier 1 flat. Let's say you hit tier 1 flat now on a desecration. So this is how your talisman is now. This is desecrated basically. And for the last step, there's not too much you can do. You can only perfect exalt it and hope for a high flat. If you don't get it, all you can do is whittle. So this would be like the end, I guess. You have mana gain per kill, which is fairly high at 78, and life gain per kill is at 77. So these would be higher than the flat fizz. So that's how I ended on. I ended on mine with like life gain per kill and +3 to melee skills. I thought this is good enough. And then I used some blacksmith infuser to overquality to 28. And yeah, then put some sockets on, and that's it for the weapon. So that's pretty much it for my Wyvern build. If you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed the guide, please make sure to drop a subscribe. I'm also streaming daily on Twitch, so if you have any questions about the build or about crafting, you can just stop by. I will be streaming Path of Exile 1 in the next few days, and I will also be posting my league starter for an upcoming event league. So make sure you tune into that too if you're interested.